First Lady Bridget Macron was actually born Joan Michel. So Bridget is actually John Michael. John Michael lived as a man for 30 years and then transitioned at the age of 30 to become Brigitte.
Now, I don't know if Brigitte was ever a man, but everyone agrees, here you see the headline, that her head was in a mess when she dated the future president when he was only 15. And she was 24 years older than him. She was 39. When he was 15, going to Providence High School, where 15-year-old Macron was a student and classmate of her daughter, Lawrence. So Brigitte's daughter was a classmate of Emmanuel Macron, and at 15 years old, she dated her student. So things are not out of the question here, and this is
Facebook, happy Monday. This is insane. What I have for you today is actually insane. And I'm going to have to ask you guys to not only watch this, but to share it, because one of the reasons this has not been mainstream in the West is because, well, particularly in America, we don't speak the language. That's it, right? Everybody should be aware that this is happening. What is happening in France is definitively the craziest political scandal in human history. With the exception of political assassinations, there's nothing bigger, and I can't believe I'm just hearing about it. And it took me a long time to unpack it because I had to basically download information and then translate it over from French to English. So this is wild. Emmanuel Macron is the current president of France. For the last 4 years, longer than 4 years, I think he became president in 2017, journalists keep saying that they can't find a single trace of his wife, Bridget Macron, before the age of 30, despite the fact that Bridget Macron has 3 children, not with Emmanuel Macron. If you remember, they're a very weird couple off the bat. She is at least 26 years older than him. Their love story is borderline pedophilic, depending on who you're listening to. He was 14 and he was a drama student, and she was his 26-year-older drama teacher, and they fell in love. So that's very weird. And then she allegedly left her husband.
Get to it. It's going to be about the video put out today by Awaken with JP, who was titled his video that Candice Owens is a man, and he's got the proof. And he starts the video out explaining that Candice Owens has said that I bet my career that the wife of the French president, Emmanuel Macron, is a man. And JP then shows some of the childhood photos, tells you what the name was before they transitioned into a man, gives you all the details you need in the first minute or two, then spends the rest of the video acting like, but I got the proof that Candice Owens is a man. And then he starts acting like the flaming retard truther, like the Transpocalypse Army people. And in his way, he made it look like he's making fun of Candice Owens and the people who think that they're trans investigators. But what he did was, in the first 2 minutes, he brought more exposure to this issue by telling everyone, hey, Candice Owens has put her career on the line and is betting her career that Emmanuel Macron has a wife who is a dude. And this adds to that whole P. Diddy, Jay-Z, Obama capstone crescendo event, the Yuri Bezmenov wet dream, where they collapsed this place through the long-term demoralization, that video that I made. Still haven't titled it, I just uploaded it. But this adds to that. Remember Joan Rivers? When that reporter was following her, asking her some questions, and the reporter asked something about, do you think we'll ever see the first gay president? And Joan Rivers says, we already do. What? Obama. What do you mean, Obama? The reporter says. She turns and says, everyone knows Michelle's trans. Get over it. And she said it very nonchalant and casually. She wasn't trying to make headlines. She wasn't trying to drop bombshells. It's almost like she was tired at the end of the day, didn't want to have to deal with these reporters asking questions. So she was kind of off guard and maybe out of her beat and her rhythm. She said it so nonchalant and casually, like the people she hangs around with amongst them, it is common knowledge. Everyone does know that. In fact, it's like a virtue signaling to identify who's the elite. Amongst the elite, who's rubbing elbows with the real highfalutin people. You can tell based on the way they respond to this idea that Michelle's a dude. The most elite blow it off like, oh yeah, I know, everyone knows. No big deal. Why do you even mention it? Everyone knows. The people who aren't running in those circles go, what? And so it's like a litmus test amongst the elite to see how elite you are, how many of these insider circles you're running in by mentioning Michelle's a dude. And the more casually and nonchalantly you react, you're like, well, yeah, so what does that matter? Like, I don't see race. People are people. And I don't see gender. So, yeah, I know that. Everyone knows that. And the more casually and nonchalantly that you talk about that subject, it illustrates the virtue that you have amongst these elite that are rubbing elbows together to show that, yeah, you're in the club. Of course you knew that. It's like, no big deal. Everyone knows that. And that's how Joan Rivers said it. A couple weeks later, she died on routine facelift surgery. Like one that she's had 6 or 7 of before. And that are so routine, there's like almost no way someone could, oops, we messed up, she's dead. So this capstone crescendo event seems to be reaching out and including and encompassing and incorporating Candice Owens, French President Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte, who is 25 years older than him and was his drama teacher in high school or college. Emmanuel Macron had a college teacher, a drama teacher, that he started a long-term relationship with, who's like 25 years older than him. And that's currently his wife, quote unquote. And with the 2 minutes worth of evidence that was presented at the very beginning of JP's video, looks like there might be something to that. And I did some Google searching. I did find that party that I was thinking of that included Jay-Z all up in the White House. It also included Oprah and Beyonce. And so if this shakedown goes the direction that it's looking like, and that's the craziest part about all of this, my whole previous video that I did about some of this, and what I'm showing and telling you now, the craziest part is, this isn't some theory about something that might happen in the future in some bizarro upside down world. This is the best take I have on what's actually happening around us right now, the direction and trajectory of our society. And so if we all came to find out, yeah, Brigitte's a dude, so's Michelle, it would fundamentally transform the United States like Obama said his mission statement was.
Couple points to note here. One, I misspoke in that part of the video and said it was his college drama teacher when it was actually his high school drama teacher. And Candace says that she's 26 years older than him and they began to date at 14 years old. But apparently that's not against the law in France, where the age of consent is 15. So they say it was 15, she says 14, 24 years, 26 years. Either way, it's kind of weird. But this here's saying that this is a story that came out back in April 19th of 2022. You might remember me mentioning that April 19th is the day of the gifts of Baal. I've mentioned it a bunch of times, and we're coming up on April 19th once again. But this story is resurfacing right at the time when those detonation charges were released to let the floodgates go about P. Daddy, which will lead to Jay-Z, which will lead to Obama, which will lead to Michelle. They're already making the association here. As soon as JP, Awaken with JP, in his video I left a comment that not a single person in here mentions anything about Brigitte. They all start talking about Michelle. And maybe even there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance and nervousness, and that's why no one wants to acknowledge and talk about the subject. Instead, they just all want to crack jokes and talk about and divert the subject. But that's Automatically, where this leads when you start talking about Brigitte being a dude is right back to the White House, where P. Diddy and Jay-Z and Oprah and Beyonce are all partying, and the whole cabal comes crashing down, almost as if it is a controlled demolition, orchestrated and coordinated from very high up on the pyramid, even above those that are getting burned. So maybe someone can chime in. Maybe it was a typo. That's almost 2 years ago, April 19th, 2022, yet suddenly the issue is surfacing again and going viral? Either it's intended to and it's all part of a coordinated campaign, or maybe this is actually a new story and that's a typo. But if it's actually that old and suddenly everyone's talking about it, it's probably part of this orchestrated, coordinated takedown campaign, the Yuri Bezmenov wet dream capstone crescendo.